it's working now. Hey, how's everybody doing? Good? All right, we're gonna get started. We're gonna get started now. I'm on the clock because we got a couple other people who need to get up here and share what they've been working on. Thank you all for coming. You all make Birmingham AI possible. You are Birmingham AI. Who's at their first ever engineering breakout? Hands up. Let's go. Who's been to like 5 or more engineering breakouts? Yeah, you can raise your hand. Those are the OGs. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming. If you've never been to a Birmingham AI event, welcome. Our mission is to help accelerate the adoption of AI in Birmingham for all. That is not possible without sponsors who buy the chicken for us, rent the rooms for us. So we want to thank especially Kesis and Link, who are our quarterly sponsors for the first quarter. Thank you to those companies. I see some people from those companies here. Number of other companies have come alongside those title sponsors and made this possible, and want to thank them as well. Like I mentioned, at Birmingham AI, our mission is to accelerate the adoption of AI in Birmingham for all. With the engineering breakout, we go a little bit further and we say, what motivates this group? Why are we doing this breakout? And so I say this at the beginning of every meeting. Some of you are getting tired of hearing it, but we think the repetition is important. Our vision is for Birmingham to have one of the highest per capita concentration of elite AI engineers in the Southeast and stand as a model for how cities can transform their software talent in the AI world. Technology, software is changing. We, the people, need to change with it, and we need to be leaders inside of our companies here in Birmingham. So our mission is to create that elite core of AI engineers in Birmingham. We do that through hands-on training and connection, and we want to get the best engineers in Birmingham in the same room every month. That is what our mission is. The way we start these meetings is we look back over the past month, and we just quickly highlight like, what's new in AI coding. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to get through this pretty quickly, because then after me, Darren Jennings is going to come up and he's going to talk a little bit about the Ralph Wiggum Loop. You've heard about that. It's been something that really kind of before this last OpenClaw craze was the craze before the OpenClaw craze. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how it's helpful and how it works. And then Daniel Church is going to come up and talk a little bit about how we can verify some of the code output that AI coding is doing for us. But let's talk about the last month. Anthropic put out a number of reports this last month, and to summarize some of what they put out, we're seeing that developers use AI in about 60% of their work. This was surveyed across a large number of companies and inside of Anthropic themselves. Of course, inside a company like Anthropic, they push further to the right where more and more people are using this for everything that they do. The report interestingly said that like only 0 to 20% of tasks could be fully delegated to these models. And this was like surprising to me because I'm delegating much more than that to my models. And when we looked into it a little bit more, you know, you got to think of more brownfield development where there's just a lot of complexity that's out there. And many of these teams have not gone through the effort to set up context or to set up skills that can work really well inside of those coding environments. It's something we talk about every month. That's important to get better AI code output. We'll continue to talk about that. But what I thought was interesting is that up from 34%, now 78% of Claude Code sessions involve multi-file edits. So they've changed the way that the tool itself works. It wants to do more for you. And also the models are getting more capable to run for longer and to plan out more complex actions. And then we, the developers, are getting more used to asking it to do bigger things. So that has pushed the average session length up to 23 minutes from 4 minutes. instead of just hopping in and doing something real quick in Claude Code, you're spending more time getting an entire chunk of work done. Talked about this last month, but Claude Code has also come out with the multi-agent teams allowing you to do more things across the software development lifecycle. So agentic coding is here. This is the year of agentic coding. We're seeing it. But there's this like interesting productivity paradox, which is like, is this actually making developers better? Is it making them faster? These are questions that people are starting to ask. People are starting to study it. In one Anthropic study, we saw that AI users scored, Anthropic saw that AI users scored 17% lower on skill mastery. So people have been saying for a long time now, oh, if you use these AI tools, some of your skills will atrophy. You will lose some of the skills you have. My question has always been, is that such a bad thing? You know, I don't know how to do some lower level programming things anymore that somebody as a developer 35 years ago would have had to have known. So those skills have atrophied, but in its place, other things have come. So this is just something to keep an eye on and look at. I think it's important for all of us as a group and then you individually, to form some strong opinions about what skills are you okay to lose and what skills do you want to retain and be in control of. And then if you see the skills that you care about starting to atrophy, that's when you need to change the way you're doing things. So yeah, it's just interesting that as we're seeing productivity increase in many ways, we're also seeing some of these studies where trust is falling in the tools. In one example, AI coding assistants are failing in insidious ways. You've got to understand these systems and you've got to be in control of them. One of the ways you can be in control of them is to understand the job of context engineering. Does anybody read Martin Fowler? Anybody heard of him? Okay, highly recommend you read some of the stuff that he puts out. Really bright, really smart in the space, and he put something out over the past month that just showed in his own experience how improving the context of the work that needs to be done just leads to much better outcome and success. It's a context game with AI coding tools. He used the same model, and with the right structured context, the success rate went from 42% up to 78%. And that third line here says, clean context plus a weaker model beats cluttered context plus a stronger model. An anti-pattern we see at my company when we're helping software development teams adopt these tools is that everybody's just trying to use the best, latest, biggest, baddest model, and then they're not doing any of the things that they should be doing from a context side of things. So they're using that big model as a crutch to get good performance. But when the company says, hey, you can't use that model, or we've got to limit you because this is costing us too much money, or as subsidies and models go down, they're kind of left out to dry because they haven't set up the context that they need to set up. So we always say, like, make sure you get the context set up. You know, our belief is you should use the biggest and best models, but you should also structure context well. Something else that came out over the past month was Claude Code remote control. Has anybody used this? Anybody familiar with it? Nice. So kind of the meme with this is what this allows developers to do, finally, is touch grass. Because you can start a Claude Code instance on your computer, and then you can pick it up on your phone. So you can go outside on a walk and interact with Claude Code as you're outside walking. But it just, like, more and more people are trying to do things from their phones on the go, and flow state is really important for developers. What if you could stay in flow state even when you have to get up and, you know, walk to lunch? That's what this allows you to do. It allows you to keep running a Claude Code session from your phone. Pretty neat. It's now available to all seat-based pricing, Pro Max, Team, Enterprise. Check it out. Cursor is also pushing forward. They have made a big push over the last month to bring in more automation and always-on functionality. A theme we're seeing is more always on, agents running in the background, those types of things. So they've set up more automations that can be triggered by other third parties. You can more easily, connect to PagerDuty, and when there's an issue with one of your applications, fire off a triage agent to try to go and solve that issue automatically. It's just all happening with some click setup, and you're good to go. They now also support JetBrains editors. They've added in more MCP applications that allow Model Context Protocol to do more inside the editor, and they've added a lot of plugins. So Cursor really was the first agentic IDE out there, and GitHub Copilot now, just given Microsoft's presence, has taken the lead from a pure IDE standpoint in terms of companies that use it. Claude Code has taken the lead in terms of developer sentiment, what developers really want to use. So the question is like, where's Cursor? Well, we still see a lot of companies working with Cursor. They're still really pushing their product forward, and I still think it's a tier 1 AI coding tool. Following the same theme of always on or agentic coding, OpenAI launched a Codex desktop app over the past month. I believe it was kind of more beginning of February that this really first released. Is anybody using Codex as their main coding editor? Anybody? That's surprising. Okay, we got somebody, there we go. Yeah, the latest Codex models have been really, really good. They've scored great on the benchmarks, and we see a lot of developers in the industry talking about how performant they are as well. So Codex was available as a command line interface tool. Now they have an app. One of the coolest things you can do inside of this app very easily is set up automations that will run. And so most of these are running like locally on your machine, but if there's something that you want to do, like go check Dependabot and try to upgrade some dependencies in all of your code bases, you can set up an automation to run once a week. And as long as your computer turns on around that time, this will just automatically spin up and push a pull request for you. So instead of having to worry about like hosting this agent somewhere that's going to be doing this and all of that, developers can get started really easily with something like the Codex app. And then last couple things, MCP adoption is outpacing security. We keep talking about MCP, and the last few things we've talked about haven't been great about MCP. There's, MCP supported by all the tools, but we continue to see threats identified, mainly because this is just like an easy way to open up the world to your code editor and to your AI agent tool. So if you have proprietary data or code that shouldn't get out, and you're connecting it to MCP servers that are talking to some other server, that's obviously a security risk, and you just should understand what's going on in this space. We recommend more and more like using command line interface tools or just auditing your MCP servers at the very least to understand what's being connected and what's working here. And then cost reality. We've seen that power users can easily spend over $180, $200 a month via the API. In one report that was put out, a developer spent 5,000 testing across all tools. It's getting kind of confusing to think about like, how many subscriptions do I have? Where should I be using it? What should I be using? The clear thing that we want to say to the audience today is that most subscription-based plans give you subsidized use. Meaning, if you want to use Claude Code, buy a seat, either a pro seat, a team seat, an enterprise seat, because you will get more bang for your buck for the usage than if you're just connecting to the API. I think Anthropic, when we've talked with their team, they've said that if it's something like 5 to 10x subsidized on the seat pricing. So if you are paying a $20 a month subscription, you get $100 to $150 a month of API usage through that seat-based account. And then if you're using the $100 plan, you're getting $500, $700, $1,000 a month of API usage. So use one of those plans, it will save you money. 3 things to do this quarter: invest in context engineering. Context is more important than ever. 2, double check your MCP connections, understand what's happening. And then 3, start to measure like what matters. And to help you answer that question, am I being more productive? Am I being more impactful? That's what we want you to start thinking about. All right, that's a summary of what's come out in the last month. We've missed 49 other things that also came out in the last month. We always just try to bring you a lot of the signal. But with that said, I want to give a round of applause to Darren Jennings, who's going to come up and talk about the Ralph Wiggum Loop. There's your mic.
Thanks, sir.
Let me set you up.
All right. Sounds good. Hi, I'm Darren Jennings. I'm a principal software engineer with Alloy Digital here in town. We do software, and we make software products for other customers. Basically a consulting house. Again, we're here to talk about the Ralph Wiggum Loop. How many people heard of it? Well, how many people have run it and run one? Okay, one more try. How many people want to try it or think it could be useful? Okay. All right. I'm going to give you a quick backstory as to what I did. Yes, I sure can. There we go. I'm going to give a quick backstory into my usage of the Ralph Wiggum Loop. I'm a typical developer with a life. First, I'm going to kick this off. Let's get this going. Let's start. There we go. All right, I'm just starting off the Ralph Wiggum Loop here. And we'll kind of talk about it as we go through here. Just a quick backstory. I am, like I said, a typical developer. I have a life. I have 5 kids. So my life is really, really busy. I have really great ideas. I've been doing this 30 years, but never had time to do them, right? So I always had that backlog of things that I always wanted to do. And using Claude through the web interface, I started fleshing out some of those ideas. Let's get to a spec, right? If I can get to a spec, I can build it with Claude, right? So I spelled out my 5 topics. I built them. I built nice specs. I argued back and forth with Claude until it agreed with me, and built me some really nice PRD files that described exactly what this thing should be. And then I read a post on Twitter by a guy named Jeffrey Huntley about the Ralph Wiggum Loop, where he said, look, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just telling it to do one task in my PRD and then try the next task. And it's just a loop, because as we all know, when you start running Claude, and speaking on Will's comment earlier about context, the sooner you fill up your context, the sooner your results start going through the floor, right? So you get a lot of context built up, it gets confused, it starts doing things that aren't predictable and aren't good. So his solution to it was just run it in a bash loop, and it just continues to run until you stop it. And it does one thing off the top of your PRD, selects one task, performs it to the satisfaction, and then exits. And then starts again. And so with that, you get a clean context at the start of each step. So that's about the ideal you could do given the tools of the day. And it worked really well. So I decided I would spin it up and attack my 5 backlog items that I'd always wanted to work. I had an extra Mac Mini at the house, so I just started up 5 different Ralph Wiggum loops on the computer, ran them, and at the end of my first day, I'd made great progress on 4 of the 5, and I also noticed that I owed like $400 because I had and we'll talk about that, the gotcha in here. I had defined my API key as an environment variable. Well, when you're using Claude command line, if you have an API key defined in an environment variable, it will only use API billing. It doesn't use your subscription. So first key on your subscription, get that out of your out of your environment variables. Okay, but this is the basic flow. We loop, we check results, and then we write. Got the persistent memory call here, a progress.txt file. We just write one line. Hey, I did this item, and here's what I did. And so, if you look, you end up with a nice text file at the bottom. You have a prompt file. This is my prompt I'm going to run every time. An example prompt would be, hey, open my PRD file, grab the first unchecked item, or grab the first available item, first item that has no dependencies, perform that until it's done, and then update the progress text, and then exit. And so that's the basic function. It's about as simple as you can get. But again, I have a friend that always laughed about it. He can be the most annoying person in the world, but he will get you to do what he's trying to get you to do. And his words were, nothing can survive constant pecking. It's like that kid that comes up and tugs at your pants leg, daddy, 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 daddy. That's what the Ralph Wiggum Loop is. It just keeps going and keeps going, keeps going until you stop it. Okay? Again, I typically run my Ralph Wiggum Loop in a Docker sandbox because typically I don't want to sit here and answer permissions, as we all have had to do a billion times. So I run in YOLO mode, dangerously skip permissions. All right, so if I'm going to do that, I'm going to run it in a Docker sandbox. Okay. You see the command there, Docker sandbox run Claude, and it will run. And again, the authentication, I had to, in my sandbox, I've got a Docker file that set it up. When I built the sandbox for it, I had to launch Claude inside that sandbox to get it to authenticate, right? Otherwise, you'll get errors really quick. Right. So this would be what a task list would look like. It's the most simple task list I could possibly imagine. I'll show you what my real PRD looks like here in just a few minutes. Basic, for a 7-item thing, hey, I need to sign up with email. I need to log in and see a JWT token, hash passwords. So as the loop hits, it's going to grab the first item that has no dependencies. Obviously, I can't, validate a JWT until I've actually created one, so it would not pick that task. But there's no, in a true Ralph Wiggum Loop, there's no determination that this happens first. I like to sequence mine and say grab the first unchecked, because I like to look at it and say, oh, I've made 7 of 10. So, and again, it's up to you how you do it. The loop is completely in your control. Again, the loop would read the progress file, see what has already been done, implement the code, exit, update the progress file, run the test, start the loop over. That's the basic gist of it. Any question? Okay. Right. Again, with my Docker sandbox, this is just a simple Docker compose file. I just chose Node 20 Slim, told it to build, and that will give you your sandbox. The key, the green line there with Claude credentials and the Claude config, that will allow you to use your subscription and not pay through the roof. And the loop script itself, again, it's just a bash script. So it starts up, sets my failures, that's my way I hop out. If you don't set max failures, it will continue looping, failing, and costing you money. So I said 3 times. If it fails 3 times with the same result, it's not working. So let's go back and adjust the prompt. It's either the prompt or the PRD you're going to have to adjust. But that Docker sandbox run, this is your magic command. Where did it go? There it is. The Docker sandbox run command is the key. At the bottom, we're checking success and failure. All right, so if we succeeded, we're going to loop again. If we failed, we're going to count to 3 and then hop out completely. So, in the meantime, I kicked off a script here right before we started that was a simple task list component. All right, so a very simple PRD file. As you can see, it's just running. It's completed 5 tasks so far. It's working on its 6th of the 10. You can see everything Claude's doing in the process. I typically kick off the first item and I watch what it's doing. If it's not taking the direction I intended, I'll stop it, go back and adjust my PRD or my prompt to get it to a point where it's doing what I really want it to do. And I go from there.
What's that interface?
This interface is actually, when I started this, I was doing it in just true, terminal UI. And it didn't tell me near as much information as I wanted. It would say, hey, I finished a task. I started a task, I finished a task. I could read the progress file and say, okay, here's what it did, but the feedback wasn't good. This is a UI component that someone wrote, and I found it 3 days ago. It's called Ralph TUI, Ralph-TUI, Ralph TUI. And it's a great user interface for running Ralph loops. Since I found it, I've been using it and using it often. It gives you the list of items down the left side. You see the status of everything running. I can loop through and see the prompt that was given. So I can, change my view. So this would be my prompt for this task. And, here's your task. Wire up app state. As a user, I want an app to function end to end. Here's the acceptance criteria. In the meantime, it just runs and continues to go to build my product. So we started with an empty folder with a PRD file in it. We're on the last task now. So we'll run the product here in a minute. We'll see it run. That's the end goal of it. So any thoughts on this?
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having it run within that Docker sandbox, especially with dangerously?
Yeah, you're using dangerously skip permissions, so in theory it can do anything you can do on your box, including delete production databases, delete Amazon clusters. I mean, it could do anything you could do. The sandbox in Docker keeps it to, it can do anything on that Docker sandbox. So anything on that Docker, it's a container. And I've added nothing to it except Claude, so it can destroy it as far as I can care. Yes, sir?
Have you noticed that your limits are, your usage limits are lasting a lot longer this way, since you're not having like a long accumulation token of contents that you, it seems like this would let you use your subscription a lot longer before you hit a limit, because you wouldn't be accumulating a million tokens.
I've been running a Claude Max, $200 plan for months. I've never really hit a limit other than the week or the day that I had my API key in my environment variable. And there I hit limits really quick. Yes, sir.
So I've done some large scale changes similar to what this tool is doing. And I find out that Claude doesn't always make great architectural decisions. I try to give that guidance up front, but sometimes abstractions aren't very good, code reuse isn't very good, and so it takes a lot of human review, or I have to go back and refactor it later, which is actually, it does a really good job of that. So what is your experience with the Ralph Loop here? Is it putting out really good code that stands the test of time, or are you having to go back and fix things?
I would go garbage in, garbage out. As has been the case for about 30 years, 50 years with software development.
Your specs are really good.
Yes. Get your specs right, add a good Claude MD file to the root that specifies exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Again, it all drives from what you tell it. So you're in command of it. It's how well you're doing your command of it. My advice would be when you start running a Ralph loop, run 1 to 2 iterations at a time. Don't kick it off with a 50, but kick it off with 2. Run 2 iterations. I'm going to check and see what you did. And if you did bad, I'm going to come back. I'm going to throw all that away with a get hard reset, and I'm going to come back and adjust my prompts or my clarifying documents.
So you're building trust with it as you go along. You might go modify some of your Claude D or whatever it is that where you're guiding the architecture based on the feedback that you're getting from each iteration.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And what I do watch, I don't usually just let it go and not watch it. I'm usually monitoring that progress.txt file really closely. But in reality, I typically open up, like I use source tree for Git. And I usually have source tree open where I will go look at the commits it's making after each loop and say, yeah, I like that, yeah, I like that. That one broke, so we're going to stop.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, I typically monitor it until I have a good trust with it.
I was going to say, it looks like it's finished.
It is finished. You want to run it and see what it looks like?
Let's do it, yeah.
Let's try it out. This should be on.
Find the most.
New one. This should be on 51. 5173. It's not running. I started in that folder. Kill it. npm start. npm run. All right, come on now. Give me something. npm dev. That would explain it.
All in one end.
Yeah, no doubt. Holding the microphone in front of a crowd. All right, so let's see. I built a stupid task tracker, so let's see what happens. Groceries. Add, market complete, delete. Hey, it worked. From nothing to a product in 15 minutes. Again, just wrap up by saying things I built with this. I built 2 SaaS products that are outstanding in the world. I've actually got 4 customers on one of them and 2 on another with like no marketing, but somebody found it and decided to use it. And it's working well. These weren't trivial products. These were real big products, and I didn't do them in one giant loop. I broke my PRD into features, and I did a feature branch, and I would run the loop on the feature branch. So just as you would your software team at the house. So
what do those files look like?
the PRD?
Any other prompt or content?
Yes.
Listen to this. Are you
Yeah.
wrapping up with your presentation?
I am.
All right, let's
Yeah.
give a round of applause real quick.
Yep. I will make that available.
All right, Daniel's going to come up and he's going to start to take over screen sharing. So Darren, you can answer a few questions while we transition here.
Sounds good.
So what was the question again?
Or just to see what is the inputs look
PRD look like? Can you just describe it since you're going to stop
Yeah,
sharing?
it's just a big markdown file.
That's it.
Yeah, it's just a big markdown file with headers for the task name and a text of what you want it to do, and then a little section of acceptance criteria.
Next question. Darren, you come over here. You take some
All right.
questions while we...
Sounds good. Anything else?
Non-developer here.
Yes.
The main purpose of the progress file is to ensure that the agent is not repeating the same experiment over and over again, or is
The-
and it just serves as a log for you as the human to be able to review it
That is correct. That's correct. So that you can see it, the real only technical task for that progress log is it will log an error and a description of the error. So remember at the bottom of the loop there was that retry of 3 times. It would look, did I get the same error that I got the last time through the loop?
So it's empty at the start of the execution.
It's empty, exactly. The very first start of the execution, you just touch that new file, create a blank file, and go. That's correct. Anything?
One more question?
Yep. Okay, one more.
Do you use any other resources for like extended memory, shared memory between the agents since they have nothing?
Just some markdown files.
Just the markdown?
I usually have like an Obsidian vault in the section, or maybe just a docs folder with some markdown, but Claude has access to it and it knows where to go find it.
So they can make their own docs as they write, basically?
Yeah, that's usually one of the things I have it do in the PRD. So.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's give another round of applause. We came to the kickoff event in January over at the Red Mountain Deal. 2 people. Darren was set up there with Ralph Wiggum Loop running the entire time. So it was fun. We just had this massive screen with just like code going that some people were like, what is going on? So that was awesome. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Daniel Church. Let's give him a round of applause.
Some say Darren's Ralph Loop from that event's still going. So what I'm here to talk about today is specifically ensuring correctness on larger scale PRs. So I work with Will at DevClarity. We work with a lot of engineering teams. And something I'd say we're specifically hearing a lot more of over these past couple months is, great, my agent went off and wrote all of this code, and now we have way too many PRs to review. We don't know how to process PRs effectively because the agent's either going off on its own or it's heavily agent leveraged as part of writing that code. And people need solutions. So there's 2 main things I want to talk about today, the first of which I will demo. But one way to be able to get around this is actually having agents show their work. So I'm going to start there. And the tools I want to talk about are, I'm actually going to pull this up. I'm going to introduce you to our problem first. That way I can kick off this demo in the background, so similar to what Darren was doing. But for this large PR we're going to have, I'm going to pull open the application. So I actually had my OpenClaw bot just spin this up real quick. That way we'd have something to work with. But I have a very simple application that just manages recipes. You can see a recipe, you can edit a recipe, delete it, etc. But I don't know about you guys, if y'all have ever read Cooking for Engineers. Does anyone know of that blog? Anyone a big fan? Okay, I see a couple smiles at least. But there's this blog called Cooking for Engineers that if you like to cook and you're in this room, you're in the demographic. And they have these really nifty charts as one of the aspects of these recipes. And if I click into one, this is the example for corn fritters. It has all of the different recipe items that you need to include, and then when to include it and how to include it. So the way to read it is you have the 2.5 cup sweet corn kernels, 2 large egg yolks, and you mix them together, and then eventually that is mixed with these other 4 ingredients. And it is an incredibly easy way, if you are cooking, to actually read through all of these things. So me, wanting to add some of this functionality into my code base, I spun up a quick instance of Claude Code, and I just gave it a example. So I said, I want this recipe app to reflect some of the similar functionality for Cooking for Engineers, and I tossed in a link to it specifically doing banana nut bread, and said, just figure out the ways to create graphics, and I did exactly what Darren told you not to do. I put it on dangerously skip permissions on my computer and hit enter and let it go. After it came back, I have the instance here, and I can scroll up. It had actually edited in total 21 files, and it submitted this PR to me, which actually, so 21 files changed. It actually only ended up changing around 600 lines. I thought, usually the number's up here, I don't see it, but it only changed 600 lines, which is less than I expected, but still something that's not necessarily trivial to go about reviewing. So from this, I didn't know I was going to be doing all this one-handed, so give me just a second. So from this, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here and then walk you through the prompt I gave it. So I'm asking it to go and use two particular tools. One is called Showboat and one is called Rodney. These tools were both written up with by Simon Willison. So he actually created them, if anyone's a big follower of his blog. And the concept between the two of them is AI agents should be able to demo their own code and write back to a document that you can view and track while it's working. And Showboat specifically is written to try to prevent AI from circumventing these sorts of protections. So if you tell an AI tool to go test this API and tell me what response you get, there is a non-zero chance that it will not run it and it'll give you the response that it expects to see. So the way to go around that is by codifying some of this and saying, in this case for Showboat, and I'm not going to walk through all the documentation here, but there's a Showboat execute function that allows you to pass in an arbitrary piece of code and then document what was run and what came out of that particular piece of code. And I know that's all very high level, but this is a good example of that in action. I think that's big enough for everyone to see. So for example, if you were to just ask it how to use curl and JQ together, like here, it would pass in that command at the top and then document both the command and what was returned. So say if you're working on an API or making modifications, you can have Showboat in this way actually begin assembling a document as you go of how that API works. So in the case of this recipe app that is going to make these modifications, we want it to be able to pull in both the API modifications, but we also want it to be able to pull in any sort of modifications to the UI and interact with the interface. This is where we get to the other tool, which is Rodney. And on the back end, it is just interacting with Rod, which is actually a Go library, but behind that is Chrome DevTools. So essentially anything that you can automate within Chrome, similar to the Playwright CLI, similar to Agent Browser, similar to Agent Browser, similar to Playwright. It can control your computer, it can take screenshots, it can fill stuff out and click through pages. So I kicked off that one a minute ago, and I'm just gonna pull up what it's been doing to this point. Oh, and I'm now realizing I forgot to change branches first in my one-handedness. So I'll kick it off again real quick. All right, sorry about that. So now the code has actually been updated. Originally I was on my main branch, which hadn't been updated yet, so I could show the original page. But we'll give it just a second, and I'll pull up the document it's begun working on. So I'll hit yes. And the way I have this configured right now is just to go into a proof directory. So it being able to go in and just write a document to something I call proof. This doesn't necessarily have to be kept in version control, but can just serve as a clean example. And it's starting to figure out how to actually get everything run. And if I show a brief example without my hands, the -- help commands for each of these tools is specifically written for agents to be able to figure out how to run them. So in this case, it's calling out the fact that to run Showboat appropriately, and I'm realizing the split does not work particularly well. I'm gonna make that a little bit wider so we can see it. But to run Showboat specifically, this is how you create documents. This is how you append things to make it very clear what's been done. Okay, so now while that's still running in the background, just trying to run some commands, I will allow it. One other thing I want to talk about in this big picture is the multi-agent review flow. So what I'm demoing right now in the background is agents showing their work. The other thing we've seen be particularly valuable to people is using multiple agents to go through code review and to directly counter some of the cost pressures that Will was talking about earlier. I think if anything now, teams are also considering if we can use 1x the tokens for you to implement the code, and it costs 4x that amount of tokens to validate the code is right, that ROI in a lot of cases is still worth it. It is still way cheaper than you needing to go and do this yourself, to be able to throw tokens at the problem, even if inefficient, to make sure something works the way you expect. And we really started to see this start to come out in part of the community maybe around January. Some people are already doing this towards late last year. But this is an example. If anyone follows the company Every, they put out a lot of content around AI coding. And this is them specifically talking about how they, in January, were no longer reading code because their 13 agents would do it for them. And I don't necessarily endorse that at this point, but being able to have these multi-agent flows that each have a particular purpose and a particular focus can get you a pretty far way. And the reason that it needs to be multi-agent versus being single-threaded is because these tools, to a certain extent, can be lazy at times, whereas if you give them 5 different domains you want them to cover within a single review, maybe they cover all of them half as well as they would if you sent off a dedicated agent looking particularly at that area. So when you think about things like security or checking fidelity against acceptance criteria, those sorts of pieces are really important. And with both of these pieces, so both having agents demo their work and these multi-agent reviews, we've actually seen some of the coding tools begin to try to bake in these features into their tooling. So one example would be cursor agents. I'm not sure if anyone's seen this, but to Will's point earlier about allowing agents, cursor becoming more agentic, now they allow cursor to create a demo video that they can send to you before it comes back and says that it's done with the code. And that can be incredibly powerful, and that's probably what a lot of your best developers already do before code review, is they're uploading screenshots, they're uploading videos of how things work before they come back. The other piece, so on the multi-agent review front, we've seen something very similar come out from Claude Code. So they recently announced their code review feature, which I can make this a little bit smaller. And this does exactly what I'm describing around sending multiple agents out to be able to look at different aspects of the application. And to the point about this being an expensive endeavor, it actually did, as part of this announcement, TechCrunch identified, I may have lost there it is, that they think each code review run from Claude Code Review will cost $15 to $25, which if I was talking to any CFO, they would probably balk at that expense. But when you think about what it is relative to what you would be putting in terms of human time, like that's a great value. And that's where maybe it costs $10 in tokens to write the code, and if it costs $25 to review it, but you can feel highly confident that it is what it is intended to be, it is likely worthwhile. So let's check back in on our agent, see what it's up to. All right, it's created a demo chart. Let me hit. All right, so it started to go through and validate the endpoints. It's looking at recipes, JSON. Go back down. Yeah, so it's checked the flow chart is coming out of the banana bread seed data that it included. Simple tomato pasta paste. And one of the interesting things about doing it this way is you can actually watch it work. So because VS Code has live preview updates, hopefully while I'm talking right now, you'll see something new pop up, but it also might not happen because I'm doing a demo, and that's inevitably the case. We can give it one more second. And if this doesn't finish in a moment, I'm going to pull up a pre-baked version. That way we can at least see what it looks like in the end. But does anyone have any questions while it's still working? Nice, I've answered them all. Okay. Yeah, so let me switch branches real quick. I will kill this and we can come back. This is why. It was asking for my permission. So I'm going to kill that and let's switch branches.
Why you always run on dangerous.
I know I should have in this case. So let me make sure. So it actually looks like I'm not sure if I accidentally deleted my demo branch. Let's check. No, it says it's there. Oh, okay, I'm just gonna undo all of its changes, and then it should be there. So if I click in, this is an example of me running it yesterday. It actually took close to 15 minutes for a full run, which is kind of crazy. So I recommend doing this just as part of a normal pipeline rather than worrying about it on your own machine. It also asks for a lot of permissions, as you can see. I ran it pretty permissively yesterday, so it was less of an issue. So the first thing you could see it checked was specifically data migration flow, then model validation, JSON API. I'm not going to walk through this entire document, but I do want to show just as a quick example. So even as a basic call, it's trying to see, does the proper piece of information exist in the schema? So it's not just running commands against the application. It's also able to just run commands against the code base, like being able to run a grep to make sure the right thing exists in the schema file. If I scroll down, though, you'll see lots of different validations in here. But I do want to show one of the things that I think is particularly interesting is its ability to start navigating throughout the UI. So in this case, it does the UI walkthrough, screenshots via Rodney, and if I keep going down, you can see the existing recipes still exist without any of the additional pieces, so you want to make sure that it's backward compatible. But you can see these new flowcharts that are included for the new pieces of data included. And for API test salad, it has lettuce, tomato dressing, and just toss, which is also great. And I didn't give it any of the information about how to write these recipes or how to go about interacting with the tool. It just figured all this out on its own. And if I keep going down, it also starts to figure out how to, sorry, I'm going to keep going. I told it to be very thorough in this to make sure I didn't miss anything. But one thing it starts to work with is also this complex way that it came up with in my original prompt to have it create this as a data structure. It created this complex way to be able to determine, where things are folded in or mixed and what ingredients to include. And it was actually able to successfully fill this completely out to then be able to submit this as a new recipe. So it can deal with things that are, in my mind, that's a reasonably complex interaction that you would need to do as a human user. And it was able to figure it out, submit it, and make sure that everything worked before it came back to me. I know I only have a few more minutes left, but in the end, when you're thinking about doing these sorts of validations and correctness and PRs, the big picture is you can get these agents to do a lot of the stuff that your best developers are probably already doing, and that they're showing their work, they're giving you screenshots, they're able to give you demo videos, or on top of that, they're doing very pointed reviews on a lot of these different topics. And I feel like this has been a huge, at least unlock for me personally, where I was having a harder time trusting some of these AI tools and what they were putting out there, particularly around not going through and doing some of the basics when it comes to just like UI validation of are things connected the way they should be. And this has been a huge unlock, at least in my process. So hopefully people are interested. I can send out, I know I showed like 20 links. I can send out all the links I walked through because I think this is something that's valuable for people to experiment with. But does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about where humans come in on the code review process? So you're doing all these code reviews.
Yeah.
And of course, you go look at the results as a human, but what happens when it flags something and says, hey, this needs attention? How does it give you that information and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the way for these multi-agent workflows, and I should have pulled up an example for this too. Generally, the way they work is they have prioritization schemas. So like a P1 issue is something you should resolve before you go to the next step. P2 is a maybe, P3 is a nice to have. And that's how it actually raises those problems to you. But where the human actually is in the loop, to me this doesn't take the human out of the process. If anything, it's meant to just help the human get up to speed on the PR faster, because that's where people start to feel this disconnect. This AI is writing code really quick. It's code you're not directly involved in. So the thing that it's closest to is someone else writing a PR and you getting familiar with it. And the big difference between that and this is that person, is a human being that has probably clicked around the application, made sure what they built worked. And that's where you can start integrating some of these other components to simulate that before it gets back to you and you need to start doing your code review and try to figure out what was done, how does it work, those sorts of things.
So instead of going to read the spec
Yeah.
Make that still a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
That as a starting point, kind of laying it out.
Yeah, and there's actually another, we can send this link too. I don't know, I'm signing up to send a lot of links. There's another blog post that Simon Wilson wrote about linear walkthroughs that also uses Showboat to very explicitly say, go through and walk me through as linearly as possible all the code changes that were done here in a very similar fashion to be able to do some of those experiments and step through each of the individual pieces. So really it is, about getting the human up to speed faster, allowing them to be able to know what's going on, because when you have twice as many PRs as you did before, code review does just become more of a bottleneck if you can't get up to speed quickly.
All right,
Yeah.
one more quick question.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So for that, this is something you would run on your local machine and then basically use that asset on the PR, right? That's kind of how that would.
Yeah, so this could be the PR message or a comment on the PR would be, I think, the default way to do it.
But this is not running in like CI because it's basically taking what the agent is doing. It
ideally would if you're running a background agent. So if you're like running an agent on its own, you want it to do this before it comes back to you because it's the same problem. If it doesn't, then you're still having a hard time getting up to speed on what changed. Yeah.
Do you have the QR code?
Yeah.
Let's give a round of applause to
How do I do it?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Not now.
I think every senior mid-level developer has had a new developer push some changes, ask them to review a PR, and you pull it up and it's broken right away. And you're just like, dude, did you even run this? Did you even check this out? You adopted AI coding tools. That's what the last 3 years has been. It's AI bot. Did you even run this? This is just broken. And these tools make it much easier to get past that stage and then make it easier to review as well. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
We'll be back here next month. We want to do this again. We've got some thoughts about what we want to cover. If you're somebody who would love to get up on stage and show what you're doing and what you're building, come talk to myself or Tarun after the meeting. We would love for you to get up on stage. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us today. This is fun. We enjoy it. And we'll see you next month. Thank you, everybody. Register for next month.
I wasn't sure when I was supposed to get off the stage.
No, you just have to stand here forever. Good job. Next month.
Thanks, yeah. I wasn't quite as organized as I was.
It never is, I'll be honest with you. No matter how long you prep.
I'm pretty sensitive.
Yeah, no, that was good.